You know that feeling when you walk into a crowded room and your stress just spikes? Or that sense of calm you get just by looking out a window at a park? We like to think our feelings, our actions, they all come from inside us. But what if I told you the buildings, the streets, the very spaces around you are constantly, quietly shaping who you are? We're going to unpack this because the world we've built, from your desk at the office to your entire city, it has a huge effect on pretty much everything you feel and do.
So let's just ask it straight up. Do the buildings around you actually control your behavior? I know, it sounds a little bit like science fiction, right? But this question has been at the very heart of architecture and city planning for more than 100 years. And the answer? Well, it's way more complex and, frankly, a lot more fascinating than you might think.
To really get a handle on how our spaces affect us today, we've got to go back in time a bit. We're going to start with this really radical and, as it turns out, pretty dangerous idea from the past. This dream that architects could literally design a perfect society, engineering human behavior right down to the last brick. And this big idea has a name: architectural determinism. Now, in its most extreme form, the theory basically argues that your environment causes your behavior, period. It's a one-way street. The building dictates and you obey. This view totally denies that we as people, interact with our surroundings, or adapt them, or change them. It just sees us as passive little figures in some grand design.
And you might think this was some fringe idea, but no way. One of the giants of modern architecture, Le Corbusier, was all in on this. He was totally convinced that since all humans have the same basic needs, he could design one perfect universal style of building that would create a rational, harmonious society everywhere. It was this incredibly utopian vision, just solve deep social problems through the sheer force of design. But of course, there's a dark side to this kind of thinking. This quote from the critic Adolphe Behet is, well, it's chilling because it reveals the authoritarian streak hidden inside determinism. See, if architecture can make people good, it can also harm them. It can control them, confine them. It can even crush the human spirit. The line between a designed utopia and a designed prison can be terrifyingly thin. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. It had absolutely catastrophic results in the real world. Just look at the tragic story of the Pruitt-Igoe housing project. I mean, it was designed with the best intentions, a clean, safe, modern fix for urban slums. But the design itself created a living nightmare. You had these vast, anonymous hallways and huge, windswept public areas shared by thousands of people. It created what sociologists call a behavioral sink. Basically, a total social breakdown where the environment itself fuels chaos. Residents felt no ownership, no identity, no control over their space. It was a lot like those infamous experiments with overcrowded rats. The social bonds just dissolved into aggression and despair. The demolition of Pruitt-Igoe, just 21 years after it was built, became this huge symbol for the death of that extreme kind of architectural determinism.
So okay, that dream of total control, it was a total dead end. But what rose from its ashes was something way more subtle, and honestly, a lot more powerful. Our spaces don't control us, but they absolutely influence us every single day.
All right, so here's the key difference, the real takeaway. The old idea, determinism, was a one-way street. The new understanding, influence, is more like a conversation. Architecture creates this powerful context that nudges our feelings, our thoughts, our choices. It kind of sets the stage, right? But we're still the actors, and we can interpret the scene and even change the set.
And this is where it gets really personal, because this all plugs right into our basic human psychology. We actually draw a part of our identity from our surroundings. That's our place identity. We all have a deep need to feel secure, which is exactly why huge, undefined open spaces can feel so unsettling. We need privacy. And, maybe most important of all, we need place attachment, that feeling of belonging that turns a bunch of buildings into an actual community. When a design ignores these fundamental needs, things start to go wrong.
But what happens when that power to influence gets twisted for a darker purpose? This is where design stops being a tool for community and becomes a weapon used to intentionally control and exclude people.
It's called hostile architecture. The name itself tells you everything you need to know. Its goal is exclusion. And the real ethical problem here is that it takes a space that is supposed to be public, for everyone, and it basically privatizes it through design, making it totally unusable for certain groups of people. And here's the thing about hostile architecture. It's often designed to be invisible, at least to the people it isn't targeting. But once you learn its language, I promise you, you will start seeing it absolutely everywhere. You won't be able to unsee it. Think about it. That park bench with the extra armrest in the middle,
That's not for your comfort, it's to stop someone from being able to lie down and sleep there. Those metal spikes you see in a doorway or under a bridge, they're not decorative, they're there to keep people experiencing homelessness from finding a little bit of shelter. These designs, they hit the most vulnerable people in our communities the hardest, the unhoused, the elderly who might need to rest, people with disabilities. They can make a city completely inaccessible.
The effect isn't some big, explosive event. It's what one researcher calls slow violence. It's this constant, low-level message that says, you don't belong here. And it just slowly chips away at our collective well-being. Over time, it leads to something called psychic numbing. We just become desensitized to the struggles of people in our own community. We stop seeing them because the city itself has been designed to push them out of our sight.
But even with all this hostility, life, it adapts, it finds a way. Cities will install these rows of metal spikes to keep birds from nesting on ledges. But just look at this. This is a real photo of a bird's nest that has been woven from those very same spikes. A tool that was literally designed for exclusion has been reclaimed and turned into an act of care, of resilience, of creation.
I mean, that image really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? It forces us to ask a really tough question. If a bird can take an instrument of hostility and turn it into a home, why can't we? What would our cities look like if we consciously decided to design them around dignity instead of exclusion?
And that challenge, that question, is exactly what brings us to the future of architecture, which is actually pretty hopeful. Because today, science is finally starting to give us the tools to create better, more humane spaces by really understanding how they impact our brains.
This is where this amazing new field called neuroarchitecture comes in. For the first time, we can move beyond just intuition and guesswork. Using tools like brain scans and virtual reality, scientists can actually measure the stress or the focus or the calm a person feels inside a certain space. The whole goal is to build a real scientific foundation for designing environments that work with our biology, not against it.
And what we're finding is just incredible. We now have hard data that shows hospital patients who have a view of nature actually recover faster. We know that well-designed offices can boost creativity, and that classrooms with more natural light can improve how well students learn. So this isn't just about making things look nice. This is about architecture that has the very real power to heal us, to inspire us, and to connect us on a really fundamental level. So in the end, our environment is never neutral. The design of our cities, of our homes, of our offices is constantly pushing and pulling on us. It's influencing our health, our mood, our communities, our very sense of self. And that leaves us with one last big question. If our cities are, in fact, shaping us, who gets to decide what we become?